So welcome back to the SWAU YouTube channel. My name's Brian, your host as always, and we're continuing the Collectors Spotlight series, and we've got some great collectors for you to watch already and some great ones coming up. And we're joined today by Kenner Hunter himself, Mr. Kyle Wyndham. Kyle, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Brian. Great opportunity. I mean, I'm so excited to not only get this out there, but so far this series is something to look forward to.
Do you know what? I just thought, with all these collectors worldwide, this passion. I mean, I'm a collector myself, and I've always said it's a very slippery slope. As soon as you start, you don't know when to finish. And you start just buying and collecting, and before you know it, I just see it as an investment. That is what I tell my wife. It's an investment, and also something nice to look at as well. So what I wanted to do was, the first question, like I'm going to ask every collector, is what got you into collecting in the first place, and what was the first item that you bought that started it all?
Sure. Well, I'm going to throw it all the way back. I'm a '90s kid, and so my mom really has the biggest, role to play in this because I was grown up in this film loving family. My mom worked in a comic book store in the '80s, huge Star Wars fan, as you can imagine. So. I was just kind of, I came up in the industry of liking all this and enjoying the films. And the '90s were a great time for film. Jurassic Park is one of my favorite films, and I was born right at the perfect time to enjoy all the toys. So I think the earliest toy that I still have is one of the Series 1 Jurassic Park T-Rexes. And of course, it's well played with. Now I buy in box almost everything, but I still have my childhood toys, and that was a big part of growing up. I think I might have been, I don't know, 5 or 6, and I got into a box that my mom had stashed away in the garage, and it was all Power of the Force toys. And I opened up a Rancor and got in there and started playing with it. And I don't remember if I opened up a Yak Face, but I definitely got in there and tore up all those card backs. My mom came home and she's like, "What are you doing?" But the back then they weren't worth what they are now, and I guess the smile on my face took away the heat in the moment. But that was a real big part of my upbringing, and just enjoying film and having fun with theater and everything that comes along with it, the Kenner toys especially. But all of this that you see behind me, I really have to give it to my wife because I wasn't collecting as an adult. So I had all my childhood stuff, kind of kept it in a box. Like I said, it was well played with, so most of it ended up, in a ditch somewhere in the grass and lost on playgrounds. And years went by. I got married. Just a little while after I got married, I was moving stuff around into our new place, and my wife said, "Hey, what's in that box in the closet?" And I was like, nothing, don't worry about it. She's like, no, what is this? It's just some toys. And she said, "What do you mean?" And so I opened it up, and she said, "Oh my gosh, this is your childhood stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we went down this long road, and she tells me, "You know what? When I was a kid, I had all these great toys, and I had to give them up." She kind of was in the upbringing of, once you hit that age, it's out the door, and you got to grow up. And so it inspired her a little bit to start collecting. So she was honestly the first one. She picked up some old Rugrats from the '90s and started building a collection. I'd see a box or two come through the door, and I'm like, "Hey, what's that?" And so it kind of began. And she's like, "If you want to collect too, go ahead." And so it's evolved time and time again to what it is now. But making it a family affair, just as when I was little, now with my son, is what we're doing. And we're trying to do it in the most responsible way. I know that you're talking about the investment piece, and it's great to think of the money going out the door and something coming in. And I think that with higher end collecting, once you get into the swing of things, there's a huge room for investing.
I mean, it's just crazy to think that back when we were kids, or when I was a kid, I was playing with the Star Wars figures. And to think, if only I kept them in their boxes and their packaging, I'd be very wealthy now. But it's crazy now that we collect these toys and we just keep them in the packaging. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
having kids, I don't know how old your little one is, but have you ever had a time when the little ones looked at the boxes and thought, "Oh, I want to play with that," and then caught them, nearly opening something?
Yeah, well, so my son's turning 4 this year, and
Oh,
I made it a real big point to not be too crazy about all this, and knowing where I came from and having done it myself, I'm never gonna put him in a position to make a mistake like I did, and the high end stuff's high up on the shelf, but I've always let him touch everything, come in, look at everything. Before I had this room, it was in a real open area of our house, and so he enjoyed it. He marveled at it. He loved the Jurassic Park stuff like crazy. He hasn't even seen the movie yet, but he loves everything about the colors and everything that attracts people to the Kenner brand too. It's just that really great presence on the box, and so he sees that right away and he loves it. And so no, I've bought him some Power of the Force 2 Star Wars toys. Maybe at a flea market or a comic shop, and I'll let him tear them up and get in there, and he has a blast with it. And I've given him some vintage figures too, because I do have a lot of loose figs, and R2 is a real big one for me. I love people call it the Platina. It's all the years and memories of that toy getting thrown around. I mean, I just love that, and so I figured he needs to grow up, getting his hands on things and let that imagination go wild. So I'm all about it.
how many pieces have you got in your collection? Do you know? Have you counted them? Because I mean, looking from the back of the room right now, I love the point that you made, you made sure that things were higher because he's 4, which I think is great. Because I'm looking at your shelves now, saying, yeah, I can understand where you've put them and why. But how many pieces have you got? I mean, if you could put a number on them.
I would say right now it's probably around 500 individual pieces. I have everything cataloged for insurance purposes, and then also there's a lot of great resources. A really good friend of mine, Natalie, had just sent me a resource for Star Wars where you can put every single piece that you have in your collection, and it keeps track of everything that you have
Oh,
rolling
wow.
for you. And that's something that I highly recommend collectors do. I'm not too much of a modern collector of much else other than these helmets behind me. And it's really important, that you have a backup plan for your collection. These can get very expensive very quickly. It's important to take the time to catalog everything, go through one, so you kind of can learn from your mistakes when you're buying things, and maybe you overpay for quite a bit, or you celebrate those wins where you buy considerably low. But I've heard a lot of unfortunate stories from people that have had house fires, and knock on wood, and nothing ever happens here, but you just got to be prepared for that. And I think it's important to keep track. It also keeps you a little humble that you're not storing boxes galore with stuff everywhere, and it keeps you on a little bit of a narrow path to curate if you want to do something like this. Because boy, did I start off completely different than what's behind me. I mean, I was picking up any figure I could get my hands on. It didn't matter of quality. I wasn't going for box items, and so it evolves, and I think
Mm.
that's important to accept that hey, if you're going to be serious about collecting, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You just got to find what makes you happy at the end of the day, and then protect your investment, because I mean it can get considerable.
I mean, it always starts sort of small, doesn't it? And then you start to get educated, and you sort of get to know what pieces to get, and especially with autographs as well. I mean, you've got a great
Right.
collection. I mean, you sent me the list of some of them, and they're incredible. But before we talk about that, I want to do a bit of a show and tell. And talking about autographs, you recently went to a convention, which I'm going to bring up the photo now, and look at that photo. Do you know what? Can I just say, when you meet these stars, because I've got a friend that I was chatting to today, and she's just bought a photo ticket to have a photo with Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier, and
Yeah.
she kept on saying to me she's so nervous, and I just got an impression in my brain of her standing there for the 5 seconds with her mouth wide open, and that picture being so embarrassing. But you look quite composed there. You look like you've rehearsed that. You knew exactly what you were doing. So you met Diego. How was that experience? What was he like to meet?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So I like that you picked up on that, because I've been to tons of conventions, San Diego Comic-Con, I volunteered at it before. I've met celebrities at different events in the movie industry over the years, but I have never done a convention photo op ever. So this is the first one I ever did. I really didn't know what to expect. I have a lot of great friends. My friend Alex was walking me through it all. Like, hey, this is what you can expect and what you should do. And I was nervous because I know that you have like 2 seconds to get the photo right. And if you blink or you make a funny face, it's, you wasted your money on it. And so going into it, I was like, oh gosh, like this is crazy. I was by myself. But what really broke the ice here, I I could see a little slit through the curtain, and everybody's just real quick, 2 seconds at a time going through, and he's just standing there. And I purposely brought this R2 with me because I don't know if you've seen the interview that he did on one of the late night shows, and he talks about R2D2 and how since he grew up in Mexico, the whole translation on the screen, he thought the name was Little Arthur instead of R2. Because you say it quick, Arturito, it sounds like Little
How
Arthur.
fun is that?
And so I heard that story, and I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and so it's right on the border. And I'm like, man, I heard stuff like that growing up all the time, and I never thought that people were translating like that. And when that interview came out, it just people were talking about it left and right, like, yes, oh my gosh, I had that same experience. So I'm a big R2 fan, specifically the Kenner toy. And in the interview, he was talking about that too. And he was even, turning the top of the R2 around. And I said, you know what? He looks like he's not nervous, but he's just overwhelmed with, I think this is his first con that he's ever done too. Aside from like press stuff, he's never done one of these before. And so I saw him just kind of maybe overwhelmed with everything that's going on. I pulled it out of my pocket. I was waiting. I walked up to him, showing it, presenting it first, and the smile on his face. I mean, that's what totally broke the ice. It calmed me down because it was genuine. It was everything that we feel when we watch these shows. I mean, he's just a regular guy that we watch on TV. And he starts telling me in Spanish, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And he's telling his manager, look at this. Oh my gosh. And he's spinning the thing just like he did on the late night show. And he just had this huge grin about him. And so, in the photo, he really wanted to be careful to show it off. And by that point, I was just sort of a little bewildered. I'm just going to smile while he's talking to me because I thought I only had 2 seconds with him, and it kind of turned into a little bit longer. So I always say, especially going through this, you got to do what you love. And if you're just going to these conventions to collect paper and ink, or you're going to get your photo, you're amassing this great, memorabilia collection, this great, inventory of things that are going to create value for the future, but enjoy it. I see people coming out of the line frustrated with this, and I'm like, you got to find a way to make it fun. And especially for them, I mean, these guys are standing there for hours and getting their hand cramped. They're just going through the monotony of the day. Make it a little fun, be respectful, of course, but I saw the joy that he got. I got a lot of joy out of it too. So I mean, find the fun in it.
I mean, it's hard work for these stars at conventions, and this being his first, what a surreal experience. You're surrounded by complete strangers, and you don't know what you're going to get by each, sort of member of the public that's coming up to you. And having been in the private signing areas for SWAU, and I was speaking to Lars, and, so down to earth, so, it was like, it could have been, a bloke down the pub, down the local bar. And it's surreal to think that, you spent this time admiring their characters and their performances on screen, and then you see him in the flesh. So, I can understand why people get a bit starstruck, or they don't know what to say. But I always look at it as a way that they're normal people. They've just got a better job than me, with a lot better perks and a lot better pay. But no, that's great. And you got, is this autograph the one that you got from the actual show? Or is this previous?
This one is a SWAU pickup from one of the recent auctions that they had. Boy, am I in those auctions. There's one going on this weekend. And
starting at $1. Yeah.
$1,
yeah. I mean, I've got to say, out of all the autograph companies, and I'm not saying that because this is the SWAU channel, I'm actually being completely honest, they've got the sexiest sticker on any photo. Do you know when I saw it, because they changed it not long ago, if my memory serves me right, and the new one they've got just looks amazing. I just got my Lars autograph through, and my Maya Hawk, from them from Chicago. And it's so sexy. It really, really is. But them
I
auctions
know.
are just crazy. I mean, obviously they do one once a month that's over like a weekend, and then they bring up these ones that start from $1, and you can get some amazing pieces. You really can. But I've got quite a lot of a collection of autographs. And talking of Lars, there we go, Grand Admiral Thrawn. To see him in person, it's really strange because he had a full-on beard, he had a flat cap, he was
A
sat
flat cap, yeah.
opposite his brother Mads, and it was really odd. It was a really odd experience to see him, but he was really lovely, and I've got a really nice image as well signed by him. I mean, what makes you decide on what to actually buy? I mean, is
Sure.
it the franchise or is it the actor? What is it about the piece that attracts you to it?
It's a little bit of both. I think I'm a fairly new autograph collector. I have autographs from years ago when I've met people in person, and um, one of the things that has really brought me into another level is SWAU, because for one, you can go on there and find all the photos, for these pre-orders, and everything is customizable. The ink, the character names, and I love that because I can make it more what I would do at a convention, but without all the hassle.
Mm.
And conventions are great, they have their place, but if you don't have the means to travel or you've got a million other things going on, this is a great resource. And so for me, it's comes down to the shows. Like when Ahsoka came out, I loved it. And so I immediately, I think LA Con was the first one that most of the cast was signing at. And so I jumped at that. SWAU was there for the official signings, and I got every single cast member that was available. I really like to do scenes like that. So a lot of my autographs are in the 10 by 20 range, 10 by 16, because when I look at these autographs, I want to almost like I'm looking at the TV, looking at the big screen.
Okay.
I want to remember those moments. So I do take some time to figure out where my heartstrings were in those shows or those movies, so I can recreate that on the wall. So it's more than just ink to paper. It's a story in my mind. It just brings me a little bit more joy that way. And in doing this for the last couple of years, I'm finding that some of these autographs look totally different, than a lot of the mainstream ones that I'm seeing for resale or people are getting, because of that. So I'm taking a little bit of pride in that, and really enjoying cultivating this sort of capturing the best moments of film and then having the actor, put it to paper. So it's becoming a bigger thing for me than in the past. And anytime some of these great celebrities are coming through SWAU, I've been jumping on them too, just like Anthony Hopkins. I mean, movies that have shaped part of my life that I've grown up with. I mean, how can you not, marvel in this? And I know that autographs aren't for everybody. A lot of people will, brush them off as just pen and ink, and whether it's a prop or not, but it's about the connective tissue of how you relate to movies, and everyone does it differently. But certainly, this is a fun way to connect a little bit more.
I mean, talking about Anthony Hopkins, I watched Amistad the other night, and I haven't watched it for years, and he's just an incredible actor. He really is. And there's certain actors, I've got to say, through the years, people's autographs have become a bit sloppy. Like, when
Yeah,
they sign their names, they don't seem to have as much pride in their signature anymore. But it's really nice when you see like Lars and Anthony Hopkins, have a really nice flowing, autograph. But it's funny you say about the sizing of the pictures, because I've never thought about that. Of all the years I've been collecting autographs, I've never thought about actually getting them in the same aspect of your TV, which
yeah.
actually is a really good idea, which actually
It
might change going forwards, Kyle, the way I collect pictures. I love the idea of that.
give it a chance. I mean, it's just the perspective, because a lot of these, you crop out so much of the great imagery. That's if you have a scene in mind, get the whole scene.
Yeah.
I will say it takes up a lot of space. You gotta plan, and I went through a lot of planning to make sure things are going to get on the wall. And one of my favorite things to get signed are vintage Topps cards, because it's that big, and you don't need a ton of space to get them. And one of my favorite autographs is Mark Hamill, and it's on a vintage Topps card, and so that just sits on the shelf, doesn't take up any room. So it really depends. There's some of these big blockbusters where I'm like, oh gosh, I need it big, and
I think I've
other
got a
ones,
picture
can
of that.
be.
Let me find a picture. There you go.
Yeah.
So again, beautiful, and Mark Hamill, doesn't do that many signings. I've got to say, he's got a rare one. So when he offers it, it's a bit like Harrison Ford. People have got to jump on it and get him while they can, because there is going to be a point where he's just going to stop signing. But talking about top cards, I like the ones that, I don't know if you've seen the ones that he made comments on, like funny comments.
Yeah.
And there was a collector that had quite a lot of those, and apparently there was a bit of a lawsuit around someone trying to resell them, but we won't go into that
Yeah, I've heard of that.
because I don't want to get into trouble. But then continuing, some of the autographs. Another rare person to get is Natalie Portman. She's got another signing coming up with SWAU, I believe, very, very soon. Again, doesn't sign that often at all. And people talk about the pricing. I mean, what's your thoughts on pricing? Because I completely
Yeah.
agree with, if someone's a rare signer and they don't sign thousands of things and they're not easily available, do they warrant the price that's being charged? And I believe they do. I mean, what's your opinion?
I think that's really coming into focus now, and for good reason. I mean, the prices across all actors have gone up considerably. That brings the values up too. And I know
Mm-hmm.
people are very adamant with saying, "Hey, I got Mark Hamill's autograph at a celebration, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and it didn't cost me more than $80." And I get that. The sizes of these crowds have increased exponentially. The reach is even bigger than it was. Of course, the big collectors boom that's going on right now is fueling that, immeasurably. And so I think there's a balance to it. I say that having owned very expensive autographs now, and none of them were purchased lightly. It's a lot of thought process, back and forth planning, to do ones that make sense for the longevity of the actor, that makes sense for how I've described how I collect. And so the thing is, people are always going to pay for them, and I think that that's the humbling thing that a lot of collectors need to swallow sometimes, is that you may not think it's worth it, but somebody's going to buy it, and they do. And so that goes into the investing thought process of it. Are you going to make thousands of dollars off of these? Maybe not. Again, it comes back to what you're choosing, and your care to see, hey, I haven't seen them sign this image before, or very few times. That makes a big difference. And so I really try to keep a close eye with that and do my research on what's available out there, so that I'm not purchasing something that there's quite a few of. And so it just falls down to how much do you love, the actors, the memories that you associate with these films, that really sets those, the bar pretty high. And judging from, the few cons that Mark Hamill's doing right now, he's selling out, and people are showing up, whether it's $500 or above 600 for him and Hayden coming up. People are doing it, and that's the
Definitely.
reality. The collection world is at its heights that we've never seen before. And that's great for a lot of people. And so it just comes into, hey, you got to be prepared to make smart decisions, because it's going to get very costly. The market may come down at some point, but once you get these into your possession, it's off the list. You don't have to worry about it. And you never know what tomorrow can bring with so many of these actors. It's just one of those things, when opportunity comes, you got to get it.
I mean, I suppose it comes down to the type of collector you are as well, because you get collectors out there that literally buy stuff on the pretense to sell it on, to make money out of it. And what makes me really sad is that when you see that someone passes away, like Donald Sutherland passed away a couple of days ago, and I noticed the price of his autograph went skyrocketed high.
Yeah.
People on eBay went from charging $100 to now $300-$400. I don't agree with that because I think that's in bad taste.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, he's dead, let's put the prices up. But I suppose, yeah, you're right. People will spend. I mean, I would for Mark Hamill because he's iconic. When are you going to meet him? He's not someone that you're going to, get very, very easily. And then you've got pieces like in the picture there, it's not only Natalie, it's Hayden as well. So getting two autographs on the same picture, increases its value, increases, its rarity because of getting the both autographs together. And then obviously going on to the Mandalorian you've got here, I had to shrink the picture because it was quite a long one. You've got there Pedro Pascal at the top there signed, which I'm absolutely obsessed with the Mandalorian. You've got the helmet there at the bottom. Have you got the helmet signed by any chance, or are you keeping that completely clean?
No, that's one of the things I grapple with. I have a pretty good helmet collection now, and I'm sort of 50-50 on props. I mean, I think they look great. I think some of the autographs I've seen on clone helmets and specifically the Mandalorian helmet, they look phenomenal. For me, I think about what's the lifespan of that gonna be, not only the space it's taking up, but I also think about the dust, all the protectors that you have to do with ink on there, sun damage and all those type of things. So those things I never thought about when I first started collecting. I think a lot of people don't. They get excited, they put up a shelf, put stuff up, and then years go by and stuff gets degraded over time. And so I've really taken steps to think about that in the beginning, and that's one of the main reasons I've sort of pulled back a little bit from getting large props signed. I think they look phenomenal. I have a pretty big room that this stuff is in, but I'm very careful with how it's displayed so that, the important stuff is behind, UV acrylics and there's no light coming in from the outside in this room. And so I think about those things, but if I could get something else signed by Pedro, I'm probably going to try for a helmet or even my Grogu 101 I have. And so, I think it's, again, opportunity. And I was lucky enough to come across this autograph. I'm a big budget buyer too. I'll definitely spend when I need to, but if I can find a good deal somewhere, I'm always looking on not just eBay. And I really don't like to purchase anything on those sites because you don't know what you're getting. So I'm going through reputable autograph dealers for the most part. But when a deal comes up like that, I had to swing at it quick.
Definitely. Are you looking forward to the new film?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It was quite funny because I had Brendan Wayne on the channel a little while back, and he was a couple of hours late for the interview, and he was late because he was filming the new film. And he couldn't tell me much about it, but I was like, "What? Okay, I'll let you off." The fact that a few hours ago you was, donning the suit and being Mando, but I cannot wait. But anything around Mandalorian, I'm just obsessed with, and I'm yet to get myself one of the helmets. But if I do, the thing I don't know if you have it as well, but this anxiety, when you get something signed. So you line up, you've got your picture. I take my own pens with me because I don't trust the table pens because you don't know how long they've been used for and if they've dried out or whatever. But then it's the anxiety of, is it going to end up looking nice? So you hand over the pen. Yeah. I mean, do you get that as a collector?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I really take a lot of time thinking about. One, the pen color, because that's such a brainstorming session to make sure it's going to show up on this one chance you have. And SWAU really comes in to help with that because all the tutorials on the website of the different kind of pens, I mean, they've got so much information that you can see colors, pen types, so you get an idea of what it's going to look like on something. I definitely am apprehensive about, you know, letting it go, and whatever they have at the table will be on it. But especially going through SWAU, like I have never had a light ink show up on a signature from anything that I've ordered from them. So I do have that assurance in my mind that, you know, they're going to put the best pens out there. You can choose the colors and the type and all that, and I've never had an issue there. But yeah, it's definitely a big one that you gotta. I see people with the clear protector sheets, and they're, you know, they got all the ink colors written out and the names on it, and you never really know how it's going to look until it's on there, unfortunately. So it's a little scary depending on how
A
expensive
little
the
a
session
little
is.
trade secret that when I was in the private signing room at Chicago at C2E2, I was just literally like a social butterfly. I was looking at everything, seeing how, you know, the inside works. And the one thing that I really loved was not only the arrangement of pens, they've got pens coming out of their ears, but when someone signs, so if someone is sat at a table, say like Maya Hawk, there'll be someone sat next to her with the pen, and they will actually prep the pen before she signs that picture. So they'll have a
Yeah,
sheet and they'll prep it. So you know that that pen is going to be at its best when she actually signs the picture, which I'm not sure that everyone does, every autograph company
no,
does, because I've seen some horrors online. I've seen some horrors from Michael J. Fox, where it's
yeah,
come through. But then Michael J. Fox, I've seen a lot of people complain about his autograph. And I'm like, mate, I'm not being funny. He could do a line and I'll be happy, because at the end of the day, the
yeah,
condition he's in. But
right,
that's the one thing I love about SWAU, is the fact that how much care they take in making sure that autograph is the best it can be. And I witnessed as well, if there was a mistake or if something wasn't right, something smudged, they'll take that picture and replace it and get them to sign it again,
yeah,
which
yeah,
again, a lot of places don't do. You see horror stories of people, receiving their pictures and they're smudged. And what can you do? That's
yeah,
like my worst nightmare. Um, but let's talk about some other things that you've got on your pictures that you sent me. Oh, this is just comics. I've just got into comics, Carl, and it's a
yeah.
slippery slope. I met a couple of comic artists in Chicago, and I've gone out and I've actually bought another CGC comic, which was Teen Titans, and it's the one that Deathstroke was introduced. Um, don't ask me the number. I don't know. I'm not very good at comics, but it's very safe in a drawer right now. But tell me about these comics and the collection that we
Yeah.
see on screen.
Yeah, I was never, so I should say I never really read comics growing up. My Like I said, my mom worked in a comic book shop in the 80s. So I've got tubs of fresh mint comics that she's kept for years now, and she sleeved them up herself back then. And so she was right in the collecting world and knowledgeable about it. And so, you know, her investment back then is safe, and we still have it today. And every so often I'd pick up a comic book off the shelf, you know, going to the store, but really collecting, I wasn't into it too much because I'm just not as knowledgeable. But as things were coming through, I just love the artwork so much. I mean, it's drawn me so much more because of the way Kenner did all of their beautiful artwork on all their packaging. You know, especially Jurassic Park, all the hand drawings that they've done,
Mhm.
amazing. And so I really wanted to look for that for the displays because. You know, I went out and purchased some good shelving for them, but you know, just so there's a nice backdrop. And I thought, you know what, let's add some color. And so I'd go and pick up comic books. I got my buddy Jesse's got a comic book shop out in California, and he's my go-to. I'm like, man, I need some good art to fill up the dark shelf on the back, and he'll just send me a box of it. And then the grading, of course, has come a long way for me. And I'll show you this one. This is probably my favorite comic that I have right now, Clone Wars, and this is the only one that I'll get right with edition, but it's the first edition Clone Wars. I'm like you that I don't know too much about the rest of it, but this one was a big grail piece for me because of the amazing artwork that Dave Filoni worked on, and of course the whole story behind the Clone Wars and everything. And so it's a mixture of getting the high end pieces to protected investment. Plus, I love the artwork. And then I've got tons of comics that aren't graded that are on the shelves, that just add that extra pop of color, and it connects the tissue together. I'm really big on that with my vintage collecting. I have the loose figures up that I've got the card backs, I've got the comic books, and I want it all together. That's something for me. I didn't want to separate everything across the room because I thought, you know what? Back in the 70s and 80s, when everything was rolling off the shelves, this is what rooms looked like. It was all on a dresser, it was all on the bed, comic books, figures, you name it. And so I just wanted that, and I wanted to look like it belonged in the period. And so, yeah, I can't get enough of the vintage stuff, and slowly here and there picking up some modern issues every once in a while, especially with doing social media and YouTube. Interviewing comic book artists sort of goes hand in hand now. And so every so often I'll go and pick up something, from somebody that we're talking to. But yeah, I mean, this right here, we got the graded VHS, one of the early printings of Star Wars. I got a buddy of mine that, Teddy, he's really into top cards, and so he was pulling out boxes, and I said, "Hey, can I get some of those wax packs graded from Tops?" And so I just wanted to protect the great wax, drawing that's on those cards, and so it sort of snowballed into the beautiful looking collection that it is with that, and I've sort of kept that in mind when I'm buying autographs, just like what you see with Kenny Baker's, Anthony Daniels, Alec Guinness. And so I'm close to completing my Tops autograph collection. I got a buddy that it's lining me up with a Carrie Fisher soon. And, just it's something about seeing them all together and thinking, man, kids in the 70s and 80s had all these Tops cards. And so to see them with the actor's autograph on there is just mind blowing to me. So it's become a real center point of my collection.
And I've got to ask, when you have people come around the house and they've never seen that room, do you take them on a guided tour, or do they accidentally see it and say, what on earth? And are they amazed?
Yeah. So if you walked into my house, you would not think this is up here. I mean, just normal house, we keep it pretty orderly, and, my son's toys are maybe in the corner in the living room, and it just looks normal. But walk upstairs into the movie theater, and it kind of piques their interest. On the outside of the door, I've got a now showing sign, and I put some of my favorite movies and times that they're going to be on. And so people kind of, what's in there? And then I don't even say anything. I let them come through, and that's becoming one of the most special parts about this is, I recently just moved back to Texas, and so I'm making new friends out here. And yeah, when they walk in here, the jaw hits the floor for so many different reasons. I mean, Star Wars is the backdrop. Over on this side is all Jurassic Park. We got video games on this side, Blockbuster in the back, and so, walking around the room is a bit overwhelming for people, in a lot of different ways. A lot of it's overwhelming because, whoa, there's so much stuff. But then as they gravitate towards one thing that they had or didn't have as a kid, I mean, it's just this really cool moment. And I'm really big on stories. So even when I'm buying pieces for the collection, I love asking, where did it come from? Is this are you the original owner, or tell me about it? And a lot of times I'll get DMs on social media, somebody telling me this long story about, hey, that figure meant so much to me because of XYZ, or, oh my gosh, my parents, or I had some special connection with somebody, and that just floods the memories back. And so, just as much as I have those, having such a great connection with people, has been the coolest part. I mean, just seeing the childhood enjoyment, coming through. For me, that's the icing on the cake.
Definitely. And I want to just talk about, you said arcades, and I've got a picture of some of the arcade machines there. Where did you find these? Because in the UK, we would never be able to find anything like this. And are they free? Do you have to pay? Is it a way of saving money? I mean, what's the story of with
Yeah.
with these arcade
So
machines?
Yeah, so all of these, are all Arcade One Up is the company, and they are full replicas of the original games. Some of them have a lot of games, thrown into them, and so they look just like them, and they perform well. You just plug them in and go. One of my favorite ones is a Terminator 2 game, just like you'd see out there with the guns, and they rock back and forth when you're shooting. And so it's been a real fun centerpiece for people to walk in. And my son loves. He's getting taller, so he's up there, with the joystick for Star Wars, just kind of having a go at it, and he gets a kick out of it. So yeah, I mean, these are readily available online. And they're not too expensive either. You'd be surprised that they're quite affordable for what they are.
Yeah, forget the Xbox Series X. Do you know what I mean? And these ultra realistic games. Let's get back to the simple ones. I remember I went to a convention once and they had some arcade machines and they had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one. And but I got really excited in Chicago because they had an area of arcade machines and they had the original Batman 1989 arcade game. And I was like, what? And I really wanted to push this kid out the way, but I thought, no, I'll get in trouble. So I waited patiently for this 8-year-old to move out the way. And it's quite funny because I'm sure he didn't realize the meaning of that game to me. And I played on it for a short time, and then I realised I'm still not good at it, so I come off it quite quickly. Talking about Jurassic Park, I can remember the first time I ever watched Jurassic Park. I remember it to this day. It was in a place called the Gaiety Theatre in a place called Skegness in England, and it changed my view on cinema. Literally changed my view. My jaw was by my ankles. I thought it was the most magical thing that I saw. And you're a bit crazy on Jurassic Park, from all the stuff. I mean, the videos. I think I've got. And can I say one of my first ever jobs was working for Blockbusters. I actually worked at Blockbuster and sorted out the videotapes, and I had to rewind them on a daily basis because no one did their job, and we used to fine them for not rewinding their tapes. And I used to take the tapes home before they came out as well, so I was watching films before they officially came out, which was pretty awesome.
Everyone,
how many videotapes have you got of Jurassic Park?
Just what you see there. So it's funny. I really wanted to create the memory of Blockbuster it's some way. And I was running through thrift stores in San Diego with my wife, and on the top shelf was just this pristine VHS sitting up there. And I said, what? It looks so good. And so I grabbed it. And then about a week later, that yellow box that's down there at the bottom is a sale item from Blockbuster's Jurassic Park also. And I thought, what are the odds of this in a thrift store? And so it kind of got my brain going. And so all of these, except for maybe one or two, were all bought in thrift stores over the course of about a year or so. And I wanted it to be played. I wanted it to be, something that's hands on. And I do have some graded Jurassic Park VHSs and promos that have never been opened. And they have their place, but I love the fact knowing that people picked up that, and played it 100 times, just like I did when we'd go, I'd rent that all the time, left and right. And so it sort of grew, and people from across the country, when they saw this, and I've made friends with them, they've sent some too. My buddy Dave, who is really responsible for all of my Jurassic Park collecting. He's the largest Australian collector, at least that's online. And he's the East Dock online, and he really guided me through. And so he sent me some Australian VHSs that he had. We both had the same memories growing up. We're real close in age, and across the globe from one another. We were both running to the video store to rent Jurassic Park and play it a million times as much as we could. And so the interesting thing is people gravitate towards not only this photo, but when they come into the room and see it, it's not something they're used to seeing, and that's what's cool about Jurassic Park collectors. Everybody hears Star Wars, everybody sees Star Wars collectors, but the community is pretty small with the vintage Jurassic Park collectors out there, and everybody has such a love for this. I think just like you said, it was such a transformative movie, and that was one of my first movies I ever saw. So I was thrown right into that love from the beginning. But the colors, everything that they did, just it captivates your mind and it runs wild. And so I needed to recreate that, and I love looking at it.
Do you know what I was going to ask if you were old enough to remember blockbusters.
Oh yeah,
Go in there, and back then it was an event, wasn't it? You went,
yeah,
you spent like half an hour to 45 minutes choosing a film. You're going
yeah,
around looking at them, and then you'll get your snacks, you get your blockbuster popcorn, and you get a few drinks, and you go home, and you make it like an event. It was something special. Which
yeah,
weirdly now you press a button and you've got a million films to hand, and I think that
yeah,
part of that magic has gone. You had to watch the trailers at the beginning of the videos to see what was coming up in the future because social media didn't exist. Now it's
yeah,
everywhere. So I don't know. I don't know if it's getting worse or getting better in the way of the excitement. But saying that, with Star Wars, I think that Dave Filoni is doing magical things to change the way that this franchise is seen, and I absolutely love the new series, The Acolyte. I think it's something different. There's a lot of comeback from the last episode. I presume you've watched it.
yeah.
What's your honest view of the appearance of the mysterious figure that's got that
Yeah.
unusual helmet with the teeth?
I'll say it's very different. I usually do reviews, and actually, I just came off of doing the Bad Batch review with my wife for YouTube, and we were going to do one for the Acolyte as well. And um, there is so much noise online right now, both
Mm,
with people that love it to death and people that hate it. And so I really feel like I'm in the middle. I mean, I think all Star Wars is enjoyable to watch. I think that anybody can get behind that. Just the visuals and all that. I think that their approach to this series is quite different than what everybody expected. And I think that regardless of the direction it's going in, that initial view that we got of it is completely different than what we're getting. And so I think it's a shock value for many people that usually you can kind of paint a picture of where we're going to go, and this one has gone so far left field that people don't know. And so I think that that's
mm.
kind of making a lot of people question what they're watching way more than they would normally. And so I'm going to wait until the series is over to really
Yeah,
know what I'm looking at, because normally I'd have an opinion, but with this one I just feel it's so different than everything
yeah.
that we've gotten before.
I
Yeah,
mean, I got so excited about Carrie Ann Moss, so
right.
excited, and then I was so disappointed. I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
Talk about
know.
it's like being taken to Disney through the gates and going, "Yeah, you can't go on any rides. I'm sorry." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's sort of like you got all that
yeah,
excitement,
no,
but yeah, you're right. Something new. I think you've got to give it a chance. You've got to give it at least 5, 6 episodes to establish, because some shows it takes that for you to be invested and to actually get into it. It's like Andor got a lot of criticism as well, but that was a different type of Star Wars again. I think
right,
that was more, I would say, more adult, sort of for the
right.
adults, not the kids. And again, visually it was stunning. It was shot as always, these shows shot amazing. But I can't wait for season 2 of Ahsoka. It needs to
Oh, I
get
know.
filming right now because I'm
Yeah.
impatient and I want to know what happens next in that. And then just to go over a few more of your autographs, The Mummy, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
Is this something you've bought off auction or have you managed to meet them?
No, this was a SWAU auction piece a few months ago. I've always wanted to meet him, and I think at a con, Odette was at. I think it was maybe a Phoenix Comic Con years ago, and so I saw him from afar, and then I've never had the pleasure of meeting anybody else from the series. But when I saw this, oh, I just had to have him. And The Mummy was such a great film for me. I have great memories of being in the theater with Mummy 2, and whether or not you like that one or not, it was just such a fanfare of it all. And so getting an Academy Award winner, another one on the shelf, was important. And yeah, this one I touched it up with the gold frame because I figured it needed to be, out there and gaudy. And yeah, I love it.
And Fraser's got such an amazing autograph.
Yes, he does.
He takes care of that, which is great. And there's rumours that obviously there's going to be another film, and he's already said that he would love to step back into the part, which I think for everyone that was around at the time of the original Mummy, I think that it would get everyone excited to see him back on
Yeah,
screen. It really would.
yeah.
But I've got to say, I've had my hands on the Book of the Dead, the actual one, the screen used one,
Wow.
and the detail in that is incredible. Like when you open it up, the detail of the hieroglyphics and the writing, the care that they took in that movie. What did you think of the new Tom Cruise version? The Mummy.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Haven't you seen it? Oh,
No,
do you know what?
a lot of this is deliberate, on my part. I love cinema. Like I said, I mean, if it wasn't Blockbuster on Friday, it was the movie theater growing up, or you were there on Saturday, or my grandparents or my mom would drop me off, and I'd go with friends, and we'd watch whatever was. We wouldn't even know what was there. Maybe we'd call ahead. There was no online. You called ahead or read the paper to see what was going to be on the weekend, and they just dropped us off. Go enjoy the movie, a couple bucks in your pocket, and I love that so much, and a lot of that's changed. And I think even the way you mentioned the prop itself, the physical creations for
Mm,
so many of these films was so captivating because it was real. You saw them holding it. You could see the detail on the big screen.
mm,
I think that's what sometimes people don't realize. When you're watching at home or even on your phone, maybe it's high definition, but you're not getting anything out of it, until you're in an IMAX or a
mm,
huge theater. You're missing those details. And I think that, when you mention the newer films across the board, the CGI that took over film, for the last 15 years, and now more practical effects are coming back. I think that it showed so much that it kind of bored me a little bit. I didn't want to go to a movie and be wowed with people flying around or things, I wanted to be wowed with the story. And so many of these other films in the 70s, 80s, and of course, well beyond that, the physical practical effects, there was no other way to do it. And that's what made those such a special experience. And I still feel that way. When you look at some of these large franchises, Star Wars did it right, with the X-Wing that we talked about a little bit earlier off camera. It was beautiful to see that because, yeah, maybe you can say, is it CGI? Some of it was, some of it wasn't, but that those physical props made it believable, and I think about that across Jurassic Park and having the real T-Rex, full size right there. You can see that on film, and I love to compare them to like Jurassic World as a great example because they used some practical, but they used a ton of CGI, and you can tell the difference. I'm not as worried about what's happening on screen when it's CGI because it's fake, and
mm.
even though a fake dinosaur that's rubber is still fake, it sure is, a heck of a lot more believable.
Definitely, and you know what, you can tell. And for me, CGI I think is very overly used when it doesn't have to be. But the one thing I'm excited about on the big screen is seeing The Mandalorian. Do you know what I mean? On the
Yeah,
big
yeah,
screen, because you watch these programs and you just wish you could watch them on the big screen. But I suppose all you can do is have a home cinema, like you say, self, Kyle. Do you know what I
Well,
mean? Get
I'll say with that real quick too. My wife and I went to go see Ahsoka episode 5 on the big screen. There was some screenings. We drove up to Dallas, and
wow.
yeah, it was. I mean, it was spine tingling to see Hayden come back, and that whole Clone Wars sequence. But seeing it on the big screen was just a dream. It was right back to Revenge of the Sith when I was young in the theater. And so, yeah, to your point, I wish they would do that a heck of a lot more, and I can't wait for the Mandalorian to do
Can
that.
you imagine if Dave Filoni said, right, we're going to release season 1 as a marathon in a cinema, and then you go and you watch all the episodes? How many tickets do you
Yeah.
think would get sold?
Well,
Millions.
they're doing it. I mean, you look at the Phantom Menace; they brought back the
Yeah.
25th anniversary, and showings were sold out. people went to go see it. It was heavily streamed on Disney. The theaters were packed. I went to go see it, and it brought back tons of memories from seeing it when I was a kid. And that's the thing, there's a demand for this. People still got to show up. I think I'm going to go see Jurassic Park on the big screen again on Monday, where they're doing a special screening down here, and I'm going to head out to see it. And it's so cool to relive those moments. Go to your classic film festivals, go to those opportunities. They don't come up often, but when they do, they are incredible.
That is going to be fantastic. You know what? I'd love to see Jurassic Park again on the big screen, just to relive that moment of watching it for the first time, because it wasn't a massive screen that I saw it on, so it'd be quite nice to watch it. I mean, again,
Yeah.
you know what? It's aged well, I've got to say. It's aged well. And when you talked about practical effects a moment ago, for me, my favourite Star Wars are the first three. Well, not the first three, you know what I mean? The
Right.
ones that Mark Hamill and because they seemed a lot more real because of the practical effects. And yeah,
Yep.
it hasn't aged that well as such, because we're spoiled now with CGI and all that jazz. But I still love them, the originals. And then talking about Star Wars, Billy D. Williams, one of
Yeah.
these are becoming really popular at the moment. Every convention I'm going to, you're seeing tons of these. I mean, did you meet him? Or was this one of an
No,
auction?
I
Or
there was some passing time, maybe at least 20 years ago. I was somewhere. It might have been in LA or in Vegas, and he happened to be where we were. And so I've seen him in person. And I think even maybe at a convention at some point, I had run into. I didn't go to go meet him, but I saw that he was there, and I saw him. But yeah, this one came up from a buddy of mine, and I love Empire Strikes Back like there's no business. And so, getting such an iconic character like him, it was a no brainer, and I'm happy to see that he's getting a lot more love now. I mean, he was closing down department stores, and the ladies were showing up to see Mr. Colt 45 like crazy back in the day, but to now see younger generations really getting behind Lando is something that he's always deserved. And so I'm so happy that people are way more warm response to him in the collecting world than I think they had been in the past. And so it's a fun time to see that. I definitely want more Lando things in my collection. He's such a cool and humble guy. So
in my collection, I'm very lucky because was it Return of the Jedi, the anniversary that they've just had? Yeah,
yeah,
I think it was. I've actually got Billy D. Williams' actual press pass from Disney when he did interviews, and he signed it as well. So it's his own personal press pass, and he signed it,
wow,
which I
oh
think is a
cool.
pretty cool piece, and that's safe. So tell us about Kenna Hunter. Tell us about your Instagram, because honestly, you are a magician of light. Your videos are like RGB heaven. I mean, tell us about your channel and how it came about, and what you do on it.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I mean, it has very humble beginnings. It's only a few years old now, and I was sitting in my old house with a flashlight and kind of trying to get the lighting right, and it's sort of evolved into, putting more proper lighting in place. And um, I love the community behind this. It's the reason I keep putting more effort and more time into all of this, because so many people have seen videos and photos that have struck those memory chords like crazy. And like I mentioned, I get those DMs of people going for length, and I love them, and the stories and the history, and oh my gosh, I haven't seen this since I was a kid. And to me, getting that connective tissue has motivated me to do better, and that's why I've put more time, more energy, more focus on the quality versus the quantity, because I'm like, hey, people are reacting to these things in a real way, and they're conveying emotions and long lasting friendships already that I've made through doing this. And so I really try my best to put good quality content that is appealing to look at, that's fun, that captivates those memories, that makes you want to do it yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest compliments and humbling experiences that I've been through with this, is folks that have come through, in their private accounts, and then they'll add me a few months later on their account that they're coming out with their own content, and they said, "Oh my gosh, I just love this so much. I've learned so much, and now I'm going to do it." And so I love that tremendously. Meeting all these folks, and now that I'm putting more content out and going in person to cons, and I've meeting more and more people, it's kind of becoming more real that, hey, that there's a real growth happening here. I mean, I was at San Diego Comic-Con a year ago, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you Kenner Hunter?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" And so it was a very surreal, humbling moment. By no means am I an influencer or anything. I'm just an amateur that, likes and enjoys his craft. But it's turned into a real fun community, and I'm hoping that the more that I put out, it brings more together and cuts out all the noise. I mean, I think with a lot of collecting influencers and pages, there's so much modern stuff and so much paid, hey, we want you to say this and that and the other. And, I'm just not about that. I think that the emotions that are involved with this are heavy enough for most people that they speak for themselves. And so that's always been my goal.
Well, do you know what? I really enjoy your YouTube channel as well. Your videos are great, and everyone needs to go over to Kenner Hunter on YouTube and Instagram. I'll put the links on the video, and everyone needs to follow him, comment, share stuff, and check out everything that Kyle has got on there. One of the last questions I always ask from collectors: if you had to pick 3 items, you're on a desert island, what 3 items would it be? And you had to give up everything else.
Okay. That might be easier than not. So I have one here. It's a Series 2 young T-Rex, Kenner Jurassic Park. Let me get the lighting. There we go. I love this piece. It's probably the rarest Jurassic Park piece that I have. It was a little bit hard to find and get because quality, of course, it's getting older and older, and the box art, I love it to death. So this is probably the number one Jurassic piece that I could not ever want to get rid of. Next up, I would probably say it's been jumping back and forth between my Mark Hamill autograph and my Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen autograph. I lean a little bit more to Natalie and Hayden because I grew up with those films, and I mean I'm a huge original trilogy fan through and through, but I was just at that right age that almost the same age as them, and I was just like, I love this stuff. And so probably that autograph is one of the top ones.
And before we get to the last one, I've got to quickly just say on Hayden Christian, he got a lot of flack when he was in the movies. And then how funny is it that everyone is flipped, and then as soon as he appears in Ahsoka, everyone is absolutely loving him, completely. And I just think what an incredible return to the franchise that he's had in Ahsoka. I think that he looks amazing. He did such a great job. And what an amazing storyline as well to introduce him into the franchise.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us that grew up with those films, Ahmed Best is a great example of that too. Jar Jar Binks,
I love Jar Jar
there wasn't
Binks.
hatred. Yeah, there was no hatred, from our generations, and it was just a quirky character. But it was, I can't think about Star Wars Episode 1 or any of the 3 and not think about Jar Jar Binks in there, and so I think that for many of us growing up, we didn't have the platform to say anything. Social media was our, mechanism for that. And it just came out like crazy with Obi-Wan. When Obi-Wan Kenobi came out, just having Hayden, come back to any sort of con environment was such a big deal. And it shocked us as much as I think it shocked him, the love that was there, because we all felt it. I guess it just was never conveyed. And that's why I mentioned too, like Billy D. It's the same thing. He had an amazing career and in the limelight, like believe. But there was a lot of a hate for the character. There was a lot of that,
Mm.
resentment for his role, and to know that, hey, so many people love these characters so dearly. We just got to get that message to them. So, even when I met Diego Luna yesterday, and Andy Serkis as well, I mean, I give him a big hug and I said, thank you so much, for what you've brought for us, and even after all the laughs with Diego, still, it's like, you want them to know, hey, you're not just, a character, you're a pivotal, role in our lives, that if you love film, it's ingrained with these characters, and the second that you find a little bit of yourself in there, and that's kind of the beauty of Star Wars, is you find a little bit of yourself in all these characters. That, I mean, it's a part of your connective tissue if you love film. And so,
Definitely.
if you meet these people, tell them, don't be shy about it. If they're at these conventions, if they're, at a place where you should go up to them, um, they want to hear it just as much as you want to say it, that they're a fan of you being a fan of them. So, I couldn't agree more with that too.
Mm.
It's a shame that maybe they were perceived poorly, but hey, our money is talking right now, and boy, are people begging for so many of these actors to come back and do films, and we are ready to show up for so many of our childhood heroes.
Definitely. And your last piece that you're going to keep?
My last piece, yeah, I think it has to be my R2 collection. I have to say the whole collection, because I've got about 90 R2,
Uh,
all vintage. I'm not a modern collector of R2, but I just love the original Kenner R2 pieces, and even the simplest ones that are torn of all of their stickers, and it's just a white base or a completely, corroded chrome top. I mean, I love them to death. And so I would probably grab one R2 if I got to run out the door. I'd probably grab my lightsaber R2, pop-up lightsaber R2, Power of the Force, just because that's the most value. But yeah, I can't get enough of them. That's why it was important when I heard Diego Luna's story about R2. I mean, it was such a connective moment for me. I was like, I got to recreate that somehow. And so, very serendipitous moment to be a part of it.
Kyle, you've been a great guest. It's been absolutely a joy to chat to you, and I look forward to see your collection growing. I don't know how it can grow anymore, but I'm sure it will do on your social media on Kenner Hunter. But thank you so much for coming onto the SWAU channel, and maybe in the future we can get you on again, and you could tell us what else you've been collecting and any celebrity meets that you want to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.